How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. My buddy Mike Zappi, I think, is ordering some takeout or something in that nature, so that's why he is behind the camera. He will show his face shortly. We are doing our show today. It's kind of a mixture of the frenzy in Major League Baseball, the free agent period, as well as our Week 13 NFL rundown. Later in the week, we'll be giving you our predictions for the new NFL week, which is going to be very pivotal. There goes Zappy. And we're going to start this with a huge move that the New York Mets made. Two moves. One where they allowed their perennial ace to walk and get signed by Mike Zappy's team, which is the Texas Rangers. And another one involving the other Texas team where they took their ace, Mr. Justin Verlander. It's a 2-year deal. It's steep, but if I was a Met fan, I would assume that the message is it's time to win now, and that's what they're going to try to do. Verlander's coming off a 2021 Cy Young campaign after coming off Tommy John surgery, and a lot of people might scoff at the age factor that they let a guy like DeGrom, who's younger, go, whereas a guy like Verlander is now a Met. And I had this conversation off air with my good friend Richie Dorney, who's a diehard Mets fan. And we both agree that this is about injury history, and they just trust Justin Verlander a little more. Because if we're talking about talent, these are two of the few pitchers in Major League Baseball who, in my opinion, are in the same class. I think it's a good move for both organizations. I think Jacob deGrom's health could potentially improve playing in the warmer climate and just, getting a new start. And I know that the fans in Texas are going to be very excited about this. Verlander joins Max Scherzer and makes the Mets World Series contenders for sure. And that's kind of how I see that. Zap, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail in regards to it's a move because of availability. Jacob deGrom has not exactly been available to pitch for the Mets, given 25, 30 starts a season, where Verlander, coming off another American League Cy Young. The guy his biggest flaw is he tends to disappear in the World Series, but other than that, he's still a great pitcher. And coming in there, my only worry about it is a point you brought up is that between him and Max Scherzer, we're talking about them approaching 80 years combined.
Yeah, they're old.
They're an older group. So, to me, this tells me the Mets are in on this season, but they've got to make another move. They can't just go with Verlander and say, all right, we're good. We're capable of winning, because the Braves are a much younger team. They have pretty much their entire core back.
Yeah, the Braves are going to be back.
The Phillies only got better yesterday. So, and we're talking about the team that represented the National League in the World Series this year.
It's coming over our screen now. Yeah, Trey Turner, 11-year deal. And this also opens up the next question, if Aaron Judge will be the next big name to fall off the board with a mega deal. We'll focus on Trey Turner here. Joining in a defending National League champion Philly team that overachieved in the playoffs, finished third in a very competitive division, got hot at the right time, and that has been proven that is the trend in baseball, that no matter what your record is, if you get hot at the right time, you can mow down the teams that you were looking up at all year. It's been proven with the Washington Nationals. It's just been proven in general, even with the pandemic year, where the Houston Astros kind of snuck in. They still made it to the ALCS, So this is a great move. Turner brings speed, power, and pretty good defense to an already good infield and an already good lineup. I still think Philly needs a little more pitching if they're going to hang punch for punch with the Braves and the Mets. But it's hard not to pencil them in as one of your wild cards at minimum. And as a defending league champion, they've already proven that they just got to get in.
And, you can really look at the Phillies, and ever since the firing of Girardi, they were one of the hotter teams in baseball.
Yeah, for sure.
And it brings the question, will they be able to carry this past season's success over into next year, and I think they will be able to. And now, will they be early favorites to win the division? I mean, probably the people in the Philadelphia area will say yes, but when you ask people across the nation, I think a lot of them are going to pencil in either the Mets or the Braves to win that division.
I think
But
the
like,
Mets and Braves should be about 7, 8 games up on the Phillies, but that's not an
yeah, that sounds
indictment of the Phillies. It just goes to show you how strong that division has become.
right. And like you said, with the addition of Trey Turner, that is the one player I thought they needed to add. They got him. They need to get some pitching, like you said. If they can go out there and get themselves another starting pitcher, a little more bullpen help, I mean, they'll be fine. They'll be in it next year again. There's no question about it. So I like the move, but I like what the Phillies are doing so far. The winter meetings obviously are still early. Plenty of moves will be made here in the next coming days, so we'll see.
And while we speak on the winter meetings, I'm going to bump it up to something I put in late. Aaron Judge was spotted with Tom Brady in the tunnel at Raymond James Stadium. It's already been mentioned that he is going to be attending the winter meetings, which are in Florida, and many close to the situation feel that the holdup was if the Yankees, the Giants, or whoever he's truly going to sign with, were going to offer him the 9th year. The 9th year would essentially make him 39 years old, going on 40, at the end of whatever deal he signs. Given the girth of the years, very unlikely he opts out at any point of that. It looks like it's going to be a straight 9-year deal, whether it be the Giants, the Yankees, or a team not to be named. But I do believe that, given that Yankee headquarters are within the striking distance of where he was yesterday, and given that even before the Giants started getting louder and louder as a legit contender to take Judge from the Yankees, the feeling around the Yankees after their initial meeting with Judge was that they felt very good about keeping him, and that, like any agent would tell their player, you want to hear what everybody has to say. I do think Judge has his heart in two places to a level, because obviously he grew up a Giants fan. But I also think that the kind of guy Judge is, given the unfinished business and given the year he just had, I do think that he wants to be a Yankee. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Yankees are going to sign him for a 9-year deal. Some might scoff at the idea of 9. I tell this to people all the time. This is not Albert Pujols or the same kind of situation. I believe that if Aaron Judge gives you 5 to 6 years out of what he's doing now, and to be real, let's say about 5 years, I still think you did good. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Aaron Judge is going to sign a huge deal. And I think probably within year 2 of that deal, he will be named the next Yankees captain, the first one since Derek Jeter. That's kind of how I view that situation going. And speaking of guys that are wanted in the New York area, as well as where you stay, Odell Beckham Jr. was spotted courtside with some Dallas Cowboys stars at the Mavericks game. Now, granted, the decision for most insiders is going to come either Wednesday or Thursday. Today is Tuesday morning. I would have to say that just from perception alone, it does indeed look like the Cowboys are the favorites. But I'm not going to say that just because of the fact that he was hanging out with some notable Cowboys watching the local basketball team. I think that it has more to do with the obvious. The Cowboys are coming off some big blowout wins lately. They're a second-place team, but I think many people think they might be the best in the East, the best in the NFC. And I do believe that it comes down to Odell making a true decision if that's where he wants to be. But I think one thing that we could both agree on, how you doing? I think it's one thing that we could both agree on is that hanging out with players from whether it's the Giants or the Cowboys is not the true indicator. Because if we're basing it off of that, seeing the way he was celebrating at at his own birthday with Sterling Shepard and Saquon Barkley, we're going to find out soon enough. And I think we've already given enough cases as to why each team makes sense, not necessarily going to bleed it into that. I'm going to say it today, and tomorrow might be another story. I think he's going to sign with Dallas. We'll see how it plays.
Yeah, I'm still sticking to it. And especially after listening to the tone of his voice when asked, are you going to sign with the Cowboys, things like that, He said it's a very good possibility. And when asking him other questions about the visit, he was kind of short, how everything's been great. This is what we've been doing, but I am taking the fifth on the rest of the questions,
As he should, because the truth is, everyone will know when he puts his name on the ink, on the paper, and it could still be the Giants. It could still be the Bills. It could still be your team. It could still be somebody that we don't even know that was under the radar the whole time. But as of right now, just being reasonable and taking off the fan hat, I do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to acquire him. And when I think about bigger picture for the New York Giants, it might be the right thing for them to pass on this, even though I would be rather excited if he were to come back and put on the blue.
I think the reason why he's waiting is he's giving the Giants every opportunity to come closer to the contract demands he wants. If they come into the neighborhood, then he might be signing as a Giant. But if they stand their ground and say, this is what we're willing to offer you, then he's going to be a Cowboy.
Reason I think it's feasible, and I'm going to make my quick point and move it along, is that some of your more big picture players are still under team control. Barkley more than likely signs an economical deal with the organization, as does Daniel Jones. And I do believe that they're going to buy out Kenny Golladay and get off the hook for probably cutting him a check of about $6.5 million to get the hell out of town. So it is feasible when you add the 4 years, maybe backload it where some of the bigger hit is later. And it doesn't necessarily screw with anything that you're doing in the immediate future. But once again, the Giants have to weigh the risk versus the reward. And I would have to say that the Dallas Cowboys are in a little better position to absorb something like that if it doesn't work out the way that obviously the Giants, Bills, and Cowboys all would hope it works out if they give the man a deal. And so while we're on the topic of Odell, we're going to move it to the NFC East. 2 beatdowns and a tie. Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys had their way. The Cowboys game was close until the fourth quarter, and then it looked like something that you would see in a Madden game. Philadelphia Eagles are never truly in danger against the Tennessee Titans. And pertaining to my team, I got to say a squandered opportunity. I mean, that both teams didn't lose, both teams didn't win, but given that it was our home game against those Commanders, and given that I watched the game and I know that we outplayed them, it's a missed opportunity. The second game, which will be Week 15, is getting flexed to Sunday night. And I think the New York Giants, it's a week-to-week thing. They have a huge challenge with the Philadelphia Eagles. The good news is the Giants, even going back to last week, are starting to get healthier. Got to finish. I blame many reasons as to why we lost, and it's not just an official throwing a tic-tac call on what I felt wasn't a taunting. It's the play calling in overtime. It's the drops after making great throws. It's the poor tackling. It's losing guys in the secondary. It's a litany of reasons why the Giants didn't finish this game. It's dropping interceptions that looked like short interceptions. Giants, if there's anything positive to take, is that they know that they outplayed this team and they can prove it, that they should have beat them. And, this league is all about challenges. Show me who you are. What the Giants do have going for them, and all any Giant fan should want or ask for, given the low expectations this year, is that our destiny is in our own hands. And in the month of December, that's all you could ask for as a football fan. We'll see how it goes. But one thing we could easily agree on, the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles right now are in a different echelon of stature in the NFC East as well as the conference, whereas Washington and my guys are improving, but they are not legit threats to either one of those teams right now. So we'll see. I still expect the Giants to give a strong effort against a better Philadelphia team, given the history, given the fact that the Giants have actually split with them in the past 3 years, having the success in our home stadium. So I do believe that the Giants are gonna give them a game. I don't think Philly's gonna come in and get anything for free, so to speak. We'll see how that plays.
Yeah, it's this is a big game for the Giants. They've got to I want to say they have to build on their performance this past Sunday. Well, there was a couple of bad calls, we'll call them that.
Right.
That kind of did changed the trajectory of the game, which led to a 20-20 tie. There was a lot of good things for that team. I will say that. Playing against Philly is not an easy task for anybody, for that
No,
matter.
sir.
And I'm not saying the Giants are going to win the game, but if they can come into the game and actually keep it close all throughout, and
I think it does something for the psyche going into the Washington game.
exactly, they need something to build on for next week. Obviously Washington is on a bye week this week, so it could be very well that if the Giants lose and lose pretty handily, then that's gonna mess with things mentally. And if they can keep it close, lose a 27-24 type of game, then that's going to say a lot for that team. It really is. And as you alluded to, they are getting healthier still. You have a great coaching staff.
There's a possibility, sorry to interrupt you, there's a possibility Xavier McKinney may return, which would be massive.
That would be very massive because you need that safety to, especially with the way they've been utilizing A.J. Brown as of late.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot to do. I think we're going to see a two-way tie between the Giants and Washington by the end of the week, and Washington obviously would jump the Giants.
That's correct.
In the better division record.
That's correct.
But it's going to come down to next weekend's game. I wholeheartedly believe that. And as far as Dallas, they're starting to click at the right time, and it's almost like that fourth quarter collapse against the Packers woke this defense and this team up. And they said, never again. And so far, they've proven it. I expected a blowout game by Dallas on Sunday night, and they more than blew
Which is wild because most people that were maybe casually watching or just really watching saw a 2-point game going into the fourth. And then Dallas just turned it on to another gear. So, you got to give credit where it's deserved, and they certainly deserve credit for that.
And it's one of those – if you were going to allow their defense to take over, they took the Colts out of their element by pretty much eliminating the running game, and we see how dangerous that defense is.
No matter who the coach is, if you eliminate Jonathan Taylor from the game script, you're going to beat that team 9 out of 10 times. We're going to elaborate on this more in the weeks to come. Right now, on this very day, Giants, Seahawks, Commanders, these are the 3 teams that have the best shot at the 6 and 7 seed. And we're going to roll this into the 49ers because they might be a team mentioned in this given their quarterback situation. But as of right now, Giants, Seahawks, Commanders, who gets in, who stays home, in your opinion?
Hindsight would say that one of either the Commanders or Giants, and then Seattle. I still have hope that we're going to get all 4 teams from the NFC East into the playoffs, but both the Giants and Commanders have 2 of the harder schedules remaining in the NFL. So because of that one fact right there, I'm going to say that Seattle happens to get in and the Commanders get in, with the Giants being the odd team out. And a lot of that has to do with playing the Eagles twice, having to play Minnesota. The Colts you should win, but I have the Commanders winning the rematch next week. As of now, of course, that can change, but I believe it's going to be Washington and Seattle that makes it in.
I don't necessarily think that you say anything that's not logical. I'm a Giant fan, so yeah, I'll pick the Giants, but I'll tell you why, though. And like I said, things could change. They are getting healthier, as are the Commanders, too. Once again, as I stated, missed opportunity. No Chase Young, no Montez Sweat. We should have won the game. But I will say this. I think there's a lot of people in that Giant organization, mainly the players, that know that they really let one get away, and they're also pissed off with what happened with the officials. And sometimes the power of suggestion when you do that whole us against the world mentality could really go a long way. In this case, I do believe the Giants could potentially be kind of doing that rally cry. More so than that, obviously you got to beat Washington if you want to have a chance, because Washington does have the inside track given the fact that they avoided a loss as the road team. Should the Giants win that Commander game, regardless of what happens this week, and I'll just say it, the Giants probably lose. I look at a Philly rematch where Philly may not need to win the game. They might have the NFC East sewed up. In the event of that, I think that could be the difference between the Giants going and staying home. And I also believe that Washington, should we beat them, that would be loss number 6. They still have to deal with your Dallas Cowboys, in addition to still having to deal with the Cleveland Browns now with Deshaun Watson, who's going to have a little more traction by the time they play. So I would say that if the Giants can win that rematch, and this is why not beating them the first time is so frustrating, because it would have put us 2 games up. I got Seattle making it because of their lack of a difficult schedule. I think the 49ers, even with the quarterback situation, and we're going to, I'm going to let this roll while we talk about both these things. Jimmy G's out for the year with a broken foot. But given the superiority that they have on both sides of that football, I do believe that Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson, I heard rumors that Mayfield might get a look. The bottom line is I think the 49ers are deep enough and well coached enough to sustain a hit like that, even though it will hurt them in a bigger game, hence a playoff game. So I still got the Niners winning this division, and I got the Seahawks being your 6th seed. And I'm just going to call it like I see it. This giant commander thing is going to go down to week 18. I really do believe that. And we shall see.
Yeah, it's, the 49ers took a massive hit. They're still one of the 3 best teams in the NFC, and the Vikings not being the other 2. I think it's Dallas, Philly, and the 49ers. And all 3 teams have
in that order, to be honest, but most Philly fans don't want to hear that because of the record, and I understand that side too. I look at common opponents, and I feel that with the exception of the Packers, the Cowboys have looked better against common opponents than the Eagles. And then, of course, you have that whole thing about Cooper Rush starting the game, Dak Prescott being injured, and Dallas hanging. So I do believe that Dallas might not win the division, and I even said this to you about a month ago. When it counts in the playoffs, I think that's where they can make it happen and essentially win 2 out of 3 against the Eagles, assuming that they win the holiday game. That is yet to be decided. Got a lot to go there. Before we get out of here, we're going to hit on 2 topics in the AFC. We'll keep it in the East. Pats and Jets lose. I see them losing in different ways. I'll start with the Jets. I feel they showed a lot of pride going into Minnesota. Not the same old Jets. I think it's a good loss. I think it's a loss you could build on. They could have won the game. They are now starting Mike White. The Jets identified that their issue was at quarterback, and they are doing their due diligence to give themselves the best chance to win with an upgrade. As far as these New England Patriots go, and this has been a topic that we've been constantly on, the defense, I like their front 7. Not the biggest fan of their secondary. Their O-line is doing an admirable job. But where they are truly suffering is the quarterback position and Mac Jones. I don't feel that he's making the proper progressions year 2 from year 1. If this was college, we'd call it a sophomore slump. But I think it's bigger than that. I think the New England Patriots need to identify that he is not the guy. And then obviously, you got a great deal of Tom Brady rumors. And they're saying, well, maybe we bring in Brady. Maybe he could develop Mac. I don't think Mac will be the least bit pleased if that happens. I think they'll trade him and get some decent draft equity back. And I think what might happen is Tom Brady oversees the future of maybe a Bailey Zappi and helps develop that kid. I don't think Jones is going to be the kid getting developed there. As far as the here and now, Bills do close in on the Miami Dolphins. That rematch is going to decide that division. And I said it before. If the Dolphins have any intentions of making the Super Bowl or a title game or anything in that realm, they're going to need that home field advantage for at least the first 2 rounds. And I also believe that most Miami fans are probably holding their breath, hoping that this Jalen Waddle injury is not going to be a lingering thing where he could play, but where he's not going to be the same guy because he is so valuable to what they do. They lost to a quality 49er team. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that if I'm a Miami fan. But, if I'm a Miami fan, you're rooting for the Jets this week against the Bills. And, that AFC East is loaded with talent, similar to the NFC East. Loaded with it's a little top heavy, similar to the R East. Dallas and Philly are the class, but Washington and the Giants are teams that can beat anybody on any given Sunday. But unfortunately, they can also lose to anybody on any given Sunday, and that's part of building a winner and just gradually getting better. Of course, as a fan, I want the playoffs, but big picture wise, I would preach this to Jets and Pats fans the same way I would preach it to Commanders and Giants fans. The future is bright. Be happy that we're playing meaningful December games, and no matter how it turns out, know that the trajectory is finally heading in the right direction after a decade of failure.
Yeah, it's pretty sad because we're talking about the Jets losing the game when the ball was literally in Braxton Berrios' hands.
I know. They should have won.
They should have won it. But like you said, nothing to hold their heads over. They played a good game. And the Bills, now's the time. They've wheeled off a couple of wins. We have the rematch with the Jets coming up, a very important rematch. And then we have the rematch with Miami coming up soon, which will, like you said, determine the division. The Pats are the team that, they're falling. They're falling. If we wouldn't be talking about a Tom Brady reunion if Mac Jones was the guy. That's the first thing everyone needs to understand. And the other thing people need to understand that a lot of Patriots fans don't want to hear is when they drafted Mac Jones last year, as we told Brett countless times earlier in the year, Mac Jones is exactly what you're going to get. He is not going to get better. This is going to be the Mac Jones of the next 5, 10, 15 years.
You mean he's not going to improve?
He's not going to improve.
Shout out, Brett. We love you, buddy. But even Brett's fantasy team, dude, I gave him a nice little trade. You look at his team, super talented at certain positions. Why is Brett going to miss the playoffs in our fantasy league? Oh, I know why. Because he drafted Tom Brady and thought that nostalgia and whatever else is going to make him the guy he used to be in fantasy. Those days are over with Tom Brady. I also want to give the man on the other side of the camera a shout out here. He's number one in our league. League very dear to my heart, named after my father, my late father. Also, the man's undefeated. He's 1 week away from winning from being the first team in the history of our league to go undefeated. I'm in second, a distant second. I happen to play the worst team in the league next week, so I should be able to hold on to my 2 spot. But he didn't just beat me. He beat me by over 100 points. So it takes a lot for that to happen. You have to have a bad week, and the guy you're playing has to have an outrageous week. And similar to, I guess, how you would say our football moods were on Sunday, that's also what looked like in fantasy. So congrats to you, Zap, for the season sweep on me.
Hey, I think that's 2 or 3 of my last wins have been pretty much by 100 points or more. So I'll take
the third matchup and come in as the underdog. But I will say this, and I think we can both agree on this. I think we're both a little concerned about Kamish's son, Josh Olsen, who's been very hot. It looks like he's going to finish as the 3, and I'm going to finish as a 2, so I'll get that bye week. But I'm looking at more than likely playing him in round 2, and then if I win, I got to play you. So it's like, man, if I win the championship this year, I friggin' earned it. It's going to be good either way. But, you ask the 07 Patriots, going undefeated brings a lot of pressure for the playoffs. Before we get out of here, Mahomes versus Burrow, they provided the fans an excellent game, 2 of the best young talents in the league. I put Mahomes above Allen, as well as Burrow, as well as Jackson, as well as all these other superstar young kids, because he's already got the MVPs, multiple Super Bowl appearances, winning a championship already. And it seems like the only guy that truly has his number has been the great Tom Brady. Now, as far as Joe Burrow goes, sensation last year, building on what he did at LSU. I think we both picked the Bengals to win this game. I'll be the first to admit that the refs, it was a little sus the way that they were really giving the Chiefs the business down the stretch. That's part of the game. And this is something that I've been very hesitant to co-sign with you, but I'm finally going to do it. With the Lamar Jackson injury now, and even before the injury, with the Ravens offense just struggling mightily against teams that they should do better against in terms of moving the football and putting points on the board, I'm starting to buy into the idea that these Cincinnati Bengals will indeed win that division. And I also want to make a mention that the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we'll dive into this further, they're after a terrible start. It looks like Tomlin's going to have his first losing season nonetheless. They're playing much better football, and I think they're going to give the Ravens all they can handle. I'm not going to give you my pick on that, predictions to come, But that's all I got on this. Take us home, Zappy. That's all I got here.
Yeah, Cincinnati is turning into the team I thought they were going to be all year. You expected them to have a hangover as well. I didn't. They're performing. They're playing ball. And Joe Burrow, I mean, he is 3-0 in 2022 against the Chiefs. That's
It's impressive. It's something to be said for that.
That is. And you say Tom Brady has Mahomes' number. I mean, I think we could say that Burrow is starting to have his number as well because for some reason, he performs very well.
Ladies and gents, we call that a segue, also known as an alley-oop.
That's right. I like this Bengals team. I think it's about that time to start asking, should they be in the conversation as right there with Buffalo and Kansas City as the best team in the AFC? I think so.
But I do want to make a mention before we get out of here. Final thing, now that it comes to my brain. This is weird. Just how you made a mention of how the Bengals have beaten them in 3 times in the past calendar year or so. The team that the Bengals play this week, the Cleveland Browns, have beaten the Bengals 3 times.
But not in the same year.
No, I know that, but the 3 consecutive meetings. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just make it make sense. And you can't sometimes. You just can't sometimes.
No, and football is a game of matchups. Cleveland matches up very well against Cincinnati. They always play them well. Of course, we're talking about an interstate rival.
And the Browns, I think we could both agree that had Watson come back, say, at the midway point versus last week, this could have been one of those teams that could have been driving hard at maybe the latter part of the bracket for playoffs. That's not going to be the case this year, but they are still talented enough to beat anybody on any given Sunday. I think we could give them that much right now.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And, I mean, their talent was on full display, even though it was against Houston.
Right.
The Browns didn't win the game because their offense outperformed Houston. It was 2 turnovers for touchdowns and a punt return. They are a complete team that, unfortunately, they just couldn't put that final piece together until week 13 due to a suspension for Deshaun Watson. But for Cleveland moving on to next year, I mean, they're going to be a fun team to watch. I will say that.
No doubt. And there's a lot of stuff going into next year. Obviously, as always, the cap goes up. That'll be exciting for our division, especially because I think it's going to be a good time to be NFC East fans again, something comparable to what we saw in the beginning of the 90s when the Giants, Cowboys, and Redskins were powerhouses. Eagles were in a little bit of flux. They were like up and down. But the point is, all those teams were quality back then. And with the exception of the Eagles, all those teams were punching tickets to Super Bowls and winning them and this and that. And then oddly enough, in the AFC, Buffalo is like a perennial powerhouse over the course of the last few years. People are just waiting for them to punch their ticket. It would be a lot of nostalgia and reminiscing. And then, out west, you got your 49ers, even with the quarterback issues that are looking very much like a threat. Next show, we're going to be discussing our Week 14 predictions and previews. I've been flirting with the idea for a little while, just trying to time it out correctly. There is definitely a hip-hop show in the near future, and I'm going to bring on some special guests as well as, the regular panel that you normally see here. Looking forward to diving into that as well. If you haven't already, please make it a point to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I am going to get out of here because I got to get to work. Zappy, thank you so much for joining me on a short notice. This was a great show. And we'll be talking during the course of the day, planning out our next one. And we'll reach out to our guys, Idris and the Mulch Man, Mr. Brett Bandick. Going to ask him about his experience at Monday Night Football yesterday. Apparently, Brett was in the house. Hopefully, he did not get detained by the authorities and did make it home. We'll see how that goes.
Hopefully, he didn't leave the game early.
I don't know, dude. I guess we'll just have to see. With Brett, you never really know. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Oh, and by the way, Brett is pretty much eliminated from the Pops, Cheddar, and the Sun League. The Zap Attack and King Richard still going strong. But no, that was not a good loss. There was nothing good about losing by 100 points. But, that's why you get off to a good start, so you could absorb those kind of beatdowns. Until next time, he's Zappy. I'm Richie. Thank you for watching and have a great Tuesday.